Hi, this is Alex from PHP Academy, and in this video we're going to be looking at the very common problem in PHP, that is the maximum file upload size. Now if you're watching this video, it's more than likely that you have created a file upload form, you're trying to upload a file and nothing's happening, or you're receiving some kind of error, your files aren't uploading and you're stuck, you don't know what to do. Well, with a default PHP installation, when you've installed PHP, whether it's you're doing it manually with Apache, or you are installing a package, or you've installed a package like XAMPP or WAMP, you're working on local server and you're testing these files and nothing's working. It's extremely easy to go in and modify PHP's configuration settings. Now this is where we specify the maximum upload limit, and obviously these are there as just as defaults for protection, but obviously we do need to consider some kind of leeway. Now if you're not uploading any files on your server, for example, if you had different servers, different servers for different sites, then if you weren't uploading files, you wouldn't need to go ahead and modify this value. But if, for example, you're allowing your users to upload, say, large images that could potentially reach up to 10, 15 megabytes, you never know, or videos or archives, or any large file sizes, you're going to want to change from the default 2 megabytes. This obviously can vary, but most installations you've got about a 2 megabyte limit, which doesn't seem a lot at all. So we're going to take a look at how we can change this, and we're not going to go into detail, but we're going to do this very carefully, making sure we do everything correctly so it actually does work. So the first thing we need to do is locate our php.ini file. So I'm using Windows, I'm using XAMPP. If you're using something different, Linux, Mac, you might find that your php.ini file is somewhere different. You can Google around and find out where this is, or you can just do a search on your computer and find this file. But when I load this up, you'll recognize if it's the same file or not, or if you're picking up something else and it's not quite right. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go and sort of open up my open dialog in my text editor, and try and make sure you're using some kind of good text editor. If you're using Windows and you're using the default Notepad application, it doesn't tend to be that good for looking at a php.ini file. It's all black, but our Notepad++ is going to highlight everything quite nicely for us. So you can see that it's defaulted to this :/examp /php, and this is where my php.ini file is located. If you're using WAMP, it's very similar. If you've done a manual PHP installation, then I assume you're clever enough to work this out anyway. Not that you are not clever if you don't know this, but you know what I mean. You should have a greater knowledge of PHP if you've done this manually. Anyway, so I'm going to go on that you're using XAMPP. If you're using WAMP, like I said, it's similar. So let's come over to our PHP directory within the package that we're using. And I'm just going to go ahead and type in php.ini. You can see it just appear here. So I click on it, not development or production. We want this here. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And you see that we've got our PHP initialization file opened. It's often called a PHP configuration file. I called it a PHP configuration file. The only reason it's called an initialization file is because when PHP is loaded through Apache or IIS or whatever you're using for your web server, it will load this configuration file, if you like, and apply the settings. Now, in this case, we can just go ahead. It's a fairly large length file. We've got 2,200 lines here, odd. So let's go ahead and do Control F and find. I'm going to get straight to the point, and we're going to search for file_upload. Now this takes us over to this sort of file uploads area. So you can see here we've got nice headers that tell us everything, and this php.ini file is extremely well commented. You can see that from just looking at this. So you can see here whether to allow HTTP file uploads. This will be on by default, but obviously we can do things like off. we're obviously going to keep that on. We've got a temporary upload directory here, which we can specify, where we have temporary files uploaded to. If you've looked at temporary file uploading in PHP, you should know that your files are temporarily put into a directory until you use the move uploaded file function to move them from that temporary location to a new location. And in this case, it's custom. I'm using xampp, so it's been set to c:\xampp and then this tmp directory. And here is the the golden property that we need to be changing. At the moment, it's set to 2M, and that means 2 megabytes. So we can obviously go ahead and we can change this. So we can go ahead and change this value to, really whatever we like. But we need to take into account that we do at some point need to limit upload file sizes. If we're not YouTube, we don't need to allow, 10 gigabyte files, for example, like HD files. It's more than likely that you're only going to need, say, I don't know, like 1 to 8 megabytes or something. And this can be anything. It doesn't have to be like 32, 64. It can literally be anything. It could be 100 if you like, but make sure you keep this M on the end here. Obviously we've got, say, 1024 for a gig or gigabyte, so you can play around with this. So let's keep this at 128. Now, after we have saved our php.ini file, so file save, I've already saved it with the Control S, we need to actually restart Apache. And obviously if you're using IIS, which is a different web server, you can go ahead and restart that, just depending on what you're using. The majority of people tend to use Apache. You'll need to restart, and that's because this is an initialization file, and it will require a restart of your server to for PHP to take these new settings into account. So just for future use, if you do modify anything within php.ini, restart your server and these settings will be applied. So to the point of the video title, if you are having problems with your max upload file size, this is the value you need to change. You go ahead and search for it in your php.ini file, restart Apache, however that may be. I'm obviously using xampp, so I have my xampp control panel just here. So I could go ahead and stop this process. I've got it running at as a sort of like a Windows process at the moment, but you can go ahead and stop this, restart it. You can use the Windows Services tool if your xampp control panel doesn't work properly. But either way, this is how we increase the upload or the maximum upload file size for files, and make sure you restart your server, because that's going to really help in, well, it's going to actually do the job. Nothing will happen otherwise. You'll just stick with your PHP loading in as it's been loaded will stick with the original files if you don't, or the original configuration, if you don't restart your server. So that's essentially how we fix the problem that you may be having with your file uploads.